Welcome to This Explainer. You know that low-level, lingering hum of stress you get when you think about your bank account? Well, if you felt that, you are absolutely not alone. Personal finance advice out there can be incredibly overwhelming, and honestly, sometimes it feels completely disconnected from actual real life. But today, we're focusing on shifting that narrative. We are going to move from financial anxiety to absolute empowerment by demystifying one of the most misunderstood concepts in personal wealth. So let's dive right into this. It's the ultimate golden question, right? How much money should you actually keep saved? And I mean just sitting there, accessible and safe, not tied up in a 401k and not invested in the stock market or real estate. The traditional answers you find online usually just cause way more stress than clarity. You'll have one expert telling you to hoard cash, and then another one telling you that keeping cash is just lazy money that gets eaten up by inflation. For the everyday person, all this conflicting advice just creates a massive case of analysis paralysis. And look, that paralysis has real, tangible consequences. Check out this number. According to recent data from Bankrate, 24% of U.S. adults have absolutely zero emergency savings to fall back on. Just think about that for a second. Nearly a quarter of the country is operating day-to-day with absolutely no financial safety net. And the biggest problem with flying without a net is that life is absolutely going to punch you in the wallet eventually. It's not always some massive, dramatic disaster either. It's the everyday stuff. Cars break down, jobs disappear, pets get sick, rent goes up, your AC dies right in the middle of July. These are those small, totally predictable emergencies that constantly drain our wallets and keep so many of us trapped in this exhausting paycheck-to-paycheck panic cycle. So, knowing all those risks, it really makes you wonder, how much does the average household actually have saved right now? It's pretty helpful to look at the big macroeconomic picture here just to see exactly where you might stand compared to the rest of the country. Now, take a look at the massive contrast in this data. According to the Federal Reserve's Survey of Consumer Finances, the mean, or the mathematical average bank account balance, is a super impressive $62,410. But the median, which is the number sitting exactly in the middle of all households, is just $8,000. This data shock instantly highlights the reality of the wealth gap. That $62,000 average is heavily skewed by a tiny group of high net worth individuals, while the typical, everyday American family really has around $8,000 to their name in transaction accounts. Which brings us to the absolute core concept of today's explainer, and that's financial margin. Most people view savings as just extra money, or like some investors call it, lazy money. But that is missing the point entirely. Financial margin is the psychological breathing room, the emotional stability, and the decision-making power created by having accessible savings. It's a total mindset shift. Savings aren't just dollars and cents, you guys. They are a literal tool for buying yourself psychological recovery time. Just picture two people who have the exact same salary and the exact same bills. One has a fragile mindset with just $200 in the bank, and the other has a strategic mindset with $15,000 in the bank. The person with $200 experiences life completely reactively. Every single unexpected expense is a threat that triggers fear. But the person with $15,000, they experience life with strategic patience. They sleep better, they negotiate better, and they make choices based on logic rather than sheer desperation. Having a financial buffer fundamentally changes your everyday experience. So how do we actually get there? Let's transition into the concrete targets required to build up this psychological safety net, assuming you're starting from absolute zero. All right, Section 1, the 3 stages of saving, building your buffer. Stage 1 is hitting that very first $1,000. This is an incredible identity shift. Psychologically, it literally proves to you that you are someone who saves money. Financially, sure, it's not luxury money, but it gives you just enough of a buffer to cover those minor, annoying emergencies like a flat tire, an insurance deductible, or a minor medical bill, completely without having to pull out a credit card and slide into debt. Then stages 2 and 3 kind of blend together into the ultimate goal, which is saving 3 to 6 months of essential living expenses. This is your primary emergency fund target. If you hit this, you have achieved true financial resilience. If a major curveball hits, say a sudden job loss or a massive home repair, you finally have the breathing room to pivot, recover, and make a plan without your entire world collapsing around you. Okay, moving to Section 2, the hard numbers, benchmarks for budgeting and age. A fantastic place to kick things off is the 50-30-20 budget rule. This framework suggests allocating 50% of your after-tax income to absolute needs, like housing and groceries, 30% to wants, like dining out, and then dedicating a solid 20% to savings and debt repayment. That 20% slice is literally the engine of your wealth. It's what builds your emergency fund and eventually feeds your retirement accounts over time. Speaking of retirement, here's a really fascinating look at where your long-term savings should be as you get older. I'd actually highly encourage you to go ahead and pause this explainer for a second and find your own age benchmark right here. By age 30, the goal is to have 1 times your annual salary saved. By 40, it's 3 times, and by traditional retirement age at 67, it's 10 times. Now listen, if you are looking at this right now and feeling behind, please do not panic. The magic of starting early, maintaining that 20% savings rate, and letting compounding interest do all the heavy lifting makes these multipliers entirely achievable over the long haul. But hey, here is where we need to pivot back to human behavior for a minute. A really fascinating question is, why do high-income earners still struggle? Because you'd think making more money automatically guarantees wealth and financial freedom, right? Well, the data shows us that simply isn't true at all. The real culprit here is something called lifestyle inflation. This is the phenomenon where your lifestyle and expenses expand to seamlessly consume every single dollar of your increasing income. You get a raise, so you buy a nicer car. You get a bonus, so you upgrade your apartment. Without a really solid system in place, a high income alone cannot create stability because your version of normal just continuously becomes way more expensive to maintain. You're still living paycheck to paycheck. The paychecks are just bigger. And this brings us right to a huge myth in the personal finance world. You'll often hear people say that holding cash for emergencies is a terrible idea because inflation reduces its purchasing power. But look at this quote right here. Financial chaos destroys far more wealth than inflation ever will. While it's completely true that inflation affects cash, not having an emergency buffer forces you into high-interest credit card debt, payday loans, or panic selling your assets when an emergency strikes. That chaos destroys far more wealth than a 3% inflation rate ever could. Emergency savings aren't an investment, they are your financial insurance policy. So how do we actually outsmart this lifestyle inflation and financial chaos? Section 3. The quiet system. Automation over discipline. Look, when it comes to money, relying purely on your own emotion and discipline is just a losing game. Willpower is totally unreliable. If you wait until the end of the month to save whatever is left, you will almost never save anything because life always finds a creative way to spend it. Relying on structure and automation, on the other hand, provides mechanical long-term certainty. It completely removes decision fatigue from the equation. You don't have to choose to save, it just happens in the background. So here are 3 highly actionable steps to implement your very own quiet system today. Step 1, open a high-yield savings account. Keep it completely separate from your daily checking account so you aren't tempted to spend it, and let it earn a higher yield safely. Step 2, automate your transfers immediately after payday. You've got to pay yourself first, before the bills and the lifestyle inflation can get to it. And step 3, start small and increase slowly. Even if it's literally just $20 a paycheck, just get the system running. Because here is the absolute core takeaway you've got to remember today. Financial freedom is built through consistency, not intensity. Real stability isn't achieved through giant, dramatic breakthroughs or winning the lottery. It is built through thousands of repetitive, boring, automatic decisions made quietly in the background of your life. Which leaves us with one final, totally crucial question for you to ponder today. Are you building a system, or are you still just relying on discipline? Take a good hard look at your own finances this week. Set up that automatic transfer, buy yourself some true financial margin, and just watch how it transforms not only your bank account, but your everyday peace of mind. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will catch you on the next one.